94.3 Radio 1.
From an Instagram live to here. Man, Ankur, and I hope you don't mind me calling you Ankur. Is that okay?
No, absolutely, man.
Okay.
That's the preferred one.
Okay, fantastic. Weirdly, I've followed, your content has popped up on my timeline time and again, and I've enjoyed, watching you. But I think a lot of people talk about your achievements. I don't want to talk about that in terms of professionally. You've been a person whom I really vibe with on a spectrum of emotion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I love your attitude towards life, and it resonates with mine so much because for you, I know you love your family. You put them over everyone else. Of course, you love work and things like that. But the thing that you love most is you love inspiring people. You love talking, which is what I do as well for a living. And from that perspective, were you always this outgoing, talkative person, or were you a shy guy initially?
I'm actually. It may be I'm not a very talkative or an outgoing person. I would think I'm.
I saw that video of
only-
yours, by the way, where it was saying that
Yeah.
you were an introvert. By the way, I saw that.
I am. I would rarely be the one who would approach someone first or be the limelight of a party or a gathering or anything like that. I love my own company. I draw a lot of energy from my own emotions and from my own thoughts. And what I genuinely love, to the point that you were trying to make, is just helping people and doing it with frankly no agenda attached, no strings attached, nothing that I would expect to come out of it. And I think when you are in general just creating content and you're visible somewhere, it's assumed that you're an extrovert because that's why you would do it. But I think the beauty of creating content online is that when I'm creating content, I'm speaking to a camera, I'm speaking to a phone, I'm not speaking to someone. There happens to be someone opposite, but I don't even know that person, and frankly don't even have a connection with. All I'm doing is just connecting with my own self, and that is what it is. So I've always been this person. I was extremely shy, terrified of public speaking. Yes, that's been a big change. From someone who had a terrible first experience on stage to someone now who's very comfortable with being on stage. That's been a big transformation. But the introversion and the shyness and the general hesitation of just approaching people, that's always remained.
I'd love if you could tell me that first horrible experience on stage.
that was in school. I think I was in the 7th or 8th grade or something. And back then I went to a convent school. So there's this elocution contest that just jumps up every now and then, and we're supposed to somehow hold our hands like this. Yeah, I don't know why. Like I never understood what this is. I think this
so.
Is
my dad explained this to me. This is done for kids because what happens is they don't know what to do with their hands. So the psychological thing of holding your hand like this is that you are entirely wrapping. You're holding yourself. Right, so it's a psychological thing that plays on kids. So
that makes a lot of sense. My way of articulating this was one hand is just telling the other, don't lose hope. No shit is going to happen. You'll be okay. It's just comforting the self. So one of these elocution, I don't know what was up with my teacher, and she nominated me for representing the class, and I was terrified. I'd never been on stage. I don't even remember what I was supposed to narrate or share. And I go up on stage when my name is called, and I'm shivering, my heart's racing, I'm sweating, my hands are all sweaty. And I get up on stage, and all that I'm praying, Kay, at that point of time is that this moment should get over as soon as possible. And I've rehearsed and memorized these lines to the point of being a robot. And I just vomit everything that I had learned just there. And it's over. Like, I don't remember how long it took. I don't know whether I did well on it or not. And that was done. And what is very surprising is once I'm done, there is zero reaction from the crowd. Zero. So of course I wasn't
That's
expecting
even
any
scarier
applause.
than them booing you off stage.
Exactly. So
way.
I wasn't expecting any applause, but I was like, hey, challa, heart idhar, whatever, like what you can expect from a boys' school. But none of that is happening. People are just staring at me. So I'm like, okay, but I'm frankly relieved that the moment is over. I'm done with it. I walk back to where I was sitting. I sit, and then my friend is like, dude, what just happened? And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, you went up on stage, you started speaking, your lips were moving, but there was no sound coming from your mouth.
Really?
So essentially, I just went through that entire elocution in my own head without any word coming out of my mouth. I was just literally within. I was like, that is what was happening. So that was my first experience.
The funny thing is, you didn't leave everybody else speechless because you were speechless yourself, Ankur.
Exactly. I was so mesmerized by the awesomeness that I brought to the stage. I was like, oh my God, I was just blown away.
You can't explain that to people. You can't explain. I was so epic in my own head. If you were there, you would know.
You would know. But you'll never know.
You never know.
Oh God. That was my first day. I swore to myself I'm never gonna go out on stage again.
I also, like you, enjoy public speaking, and for me there was a similar experience where they had this what do you call it, these elections for captaincy and all that in school. So I did a speech like that, and for me, I had written such that was my, in terms of public speaking, it was my magnum opus, right? It was my first and last. It was great. Okay, by the way, it was great. I got elected as captain. Okay, which was great. But it was such a well-written speech, and I wish I could track it back today. And when you dial it back to, say, for example, your first elocution, these are moments that stay with you in your mind for the rest of your life. Do you tell these to your kids, by the way?
I do. Our son is also very introverted, very shy, not very comfortable. Our daughter
What's his
is
name?
completely the opposite. Vidur.
Vidur, and the daughter's name is?
Uzma.
Okay, awesome.
And they're polar apart. So she loves to be in the camera. I think she was born in that family where she just saw dad creating content every day, and she's like, maybe that's a thing.
You started your content journey in 2016. Have I got that right?
Yeah. Well, yes. The video content journey in 2015-16. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
But of course, when you say content, you're referring to the other stuff that you did before that might not have been video content related to some other stuff.
I've been maintaining a blog since 2005. And
Right.
that still goes
The days of MySpace. Tell me your MySpace blog.
The days of blogger.com and blogspot. And I was never on MySpace. Because it was usually for people who were heavily into music of all sorts, and somehow I never found myself there. But yeah, I remember Blogger and Blogspot and all those blogs that used to come up left, right, and center. I started mine when I joined ISB to just chronicle my journey as a business school student. And
do you still maintain the same, is it the same RSS feed, or you pulled that off and
it's
you started
exactly the same.
Yeah?
Like if you were to go back in 2005, you're like, who the is that person? Because like I say that to myself when I'd like, oh my God.
It's still public. People can find it.
Yeah. They have to do like ankurwarikoo.com/blog. That's it. Like, and you can literally go down to May 2005 or whenever I started and start reading, and you'll be like, horrible writing, poor structure, poor comprehension, no idea, loitering around with my thoughts, and now.
So what changed then?
I think I just grew up. That's it.
No, I mean, I would like to think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that you were pretty self-aware at the age of 20 as well, na? Or rather, let's not say 20, let's say 30s.
Yes, I was. In the sense that I think I spent an inordinate amount of my time, just questioning my own self and figuring out who I am. And that stemmed from the fact that I'd gone to the US at the age of 22 for my PhD program.
I know the story. And then you decided to drop out and come back. And then you felt like that would be you felt like you would be disappointing your dad. But then look how things worked out. They worked out really well.
Exactly. Yeah. As funny as it is, I just right before this call, I wrote a newsletter which was exactly on that, which is the biggest pressure in life, is to let down people who are closest to you. And I felt that in that moment. But that also got me, and I'm so grateful for that. It just got me to introspect intensely about where did I go wrong and how and why.
Did the family have expectations, or is this expectations that you?
Massive, yeah.
Oh no, is it, or do you feel like? Because I'll be honest, there are some families who genuinely have expectations, and there are some that the kid feels that they need to live up to a certain amount of expectations. So was it the former or the latter for you?
No, it was definitely the fact that they just, I was supposed to change the orbit of the family. And we come from a very humble background. We had a fairly difficult growing up years.
Yeah, I know. It was like hand to mouth for you guys.
Yeah, exactly, right. So like going to the US was the shit. That's it. Job's done. Now everything is sorted. And then to have me come back after 2 years was devastating. And it's like, oh shit, now
what is the first reaction, Ankur, when you came back? Like, do you remember that?
Well, of course, when I came back, it wasn't that I just showed up and like, oh, I'm never going to go back. Ta-da! There were conversations that had happened. So by the time I came back, there was a sense of just relief that I was back, because I'm very close to my mom, and she had missed me those 2 years. But then, of course, once the day settled and that missing part was over, it's like, holy shit, now what are you going to do about your life? Like you're 24, you don't have a plan, you don't have a job, we don't have money.
That's a scary thing.
Something? Yeah,
that's a scary thing. No, for a middle class family, that is a very scary thing, because I remember reading somewhere that your dad took out a 55,000 rupee loan to pay for your flight ticket.
Correct.
And for you to come back, I mean, I forget what it did to them, but like for you, I'm just thinking in hindsight how you would have felt.
Yeah,
pretty nuts.
Yeah, I know it is. No, now when I think about it, it's like I do not know where I got that courage from. Back then, it seemed like the right thing to do, and I'm glad that I did it. But I don't know what got me to do it. Like, what was that certain? Because there was no certainty there. It wasn't as if I knew that this was the right thing to do. I had nothing ahead of me, but I'm glad that I did that. And something in me gave me that courage too. I think it was the fact, and I go back to that mental mogul again and again. It's when you take decisions, more often than not, most decisions in our life are reversible, but we think they are not. And that's why we pay a massive amount of attention towards making them. And two, even if they are irreversible, the worst thing that can happen once you take that decision is actually not that bad at all. You're not going to die. Like, very few decisions are fatal. Very few decisions are things that are going to snatch away the thing that fundamentally builds you or makes you. And in that sense, I knew that I'm never going to die of hunger or poverty or any shit like that, because we're just born into privilege by the fact that you at least had an education and a loving family around you. And after that, it's like, ho jayega. We'll figure it out.
You can't put a price on that, by the way. Being born. I mean, and that's why, when I hear you talk about your family, I'm like, man, I really get his drift, because professional ambition and all is great, but you can reach wherever you like, and what is it worth if you don't have a family to celebrate it with?
Exactly. Or you're not happy yourself. Like, what is it worth if you're not happy yourself? Yeah. And when did you decide? I'm curious, and I know I asked you that question, but for clarity's sake, when did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
I'll be honest with you, I'm still on a very self-discovery kind of journey. I've done this for 7 years now, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I still do it every day till the day that I die, but I want to do more. I want to do something different. The day I decided that I wanted to be a radio host was actually what I keep jokingly telling people was a mistake. No, I'll be honest. I'll tell you why. It happened accidentally. I did an internship with these guys because, there are certain colleges that mandate that you do a compulsory internship in your end of your second year. And I did it and I loved it. I was that Enthu intern that comes in at 7 a.m, leaves at 10 p.m, who's like running around. Hey, can I get you something? Hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do this? I was that kind of guy. And I still am in a lot of ways. I'm very enthusiastic about when it's an idea that excites me, I go all out. And eventually what happened was my love was for film. I loved film. I had a natural eye for cinematography. And I wanted to explore that. So I went to St. Xavier's, Mumbai, and I did a post-graduation in film, television, and digital video production. I loved it. Made about 7 short films, enjoyed it, and then decided that would I wake up and do this every single day for the rest of my life? And the answer was weirdly no, And the question was then what? So then weirdly, as serendipity might have had it, I got a call from them. They said that, hey, we have an opening, you want to join? I didn't have any, I wasn't doing anything else. So I said, okay, I'll join. I jokingly tell people that I joined one level above support staff, which was something called as digital producer. It's basically the guy who handles Facebook uploads. I did that. I started as that, worked my way through different things, and my mentor, my ex-boss, keeps reminding me that he's been in the industry for 22 years or something like that, and he's like, I've never seen anybody grow as fast as you did. And I take that as a huge compliment. And here I am today, speaking with you.
Awesome. Fantastic, man. I love that. I love that. What was it? Was it tough at any point to convince your world about what you wanted to do?
No, my parents were for me, my family is my world. And they were so supportive, even if it's something they didn't understand. My dad's a doctor. My mom's a doctor too. She's a dentist.
Wow.
I can tell you that not once in my entire life did they ever say that, hey, why don't you become a doctor? Why don't you try to become a dentist? Why don't you, try study medicine? Maybe do a master's in chemistry or something. I was horrible at it, by the way. Okay. But not once, ever in my entire life. And that's some kind of luck. I'm extremely grateful. Yeah. Exactly. Not everybody's blessed with that. And I count my blessings every day. The freedom to do whatever you want, and then say that my dad used to tell me this thing where he was like, if you want to be a carpenter, you be a carpenter, but be the best goddamn carpenter that there is out there. Like I said, you can't put a price on that kind of support.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. Fantastic.
So, fantastic. That's been my journey. I've done a lot of different things. I have a huge love for improv comedy. Yeah. So we have a team that does. We do improv comedy, and we do corporate workshops. We do corporate training. Using improv comedy, and improv is my philosophy of life. I'm not even joking. Like, everyone has a philosophy. I found mine in improv. Wow. Where it talks about living in the moment. It talks about saying yes and adding value. It talks about making other people look good. Like, just the principles of improv are so ikigai. Does that make sense?
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Did you go through any formal training in improv, or you just picked it up?
So I was part of a group that did improv in Bangalore. I did a couple of workshops and things like that. But improv is actually, the funny thing is, people think that comedy, not everyone can do, but improv, anyone can do, because it's a matter of just being, existing. It's unbelievable. So, yes, I picked it up after that. I did a lot of study, but yeah, here I am today. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
You should. If you ever come to Bangalore, you should come and jam with us and do a little bit of improv session.
I would love that.
It would just open your mind up to possibilities that, it's unbelievable. It's great.
I'd love that. I'll totally love that.
And some of the most introverted people I know, by the way, Ankur, their minds just change after improv. It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
Getting back to our conversation, I know you're doing a lot of courses now. Like, you have this whole passion of educating people out there, which I think is so lovely. And I had this question of where this urge to educate people kind of came from. Is it the natural way of life where a person who has had certain number of business achievements they've had a certain, look around the world and the way things work, and then they feel that, hey, why don't more people know this? And I need to impart this to people. And if I don't, I'm doing a big injustice. Is that where it came from for you, or what?
No, for me, I have been a teacher for the longest time I know, Kay. And the only thing that's changed over several years is what I'm teaching, but the sheer act of teaching has always remained. When I was in school, used to take tuitions for younger kids because that was a way of earning happy money, and people told that I was good at it. Then in college, I continued to do that. When I went to the US, I was a teaching assistant to my professor. So I used to teach undergrad students. And I remember distinctly at ISB, in our first term, we had a statistical modeling class, basically statistics. And that's something that I was very good at, and I'd learned in my master's degree in the US. So one day before the midterm exam, I actually created my own version of the exam and shared it with the entire batch. And the batch was like, who does that? Like, are you so far and beyond that you're not even like revising, but you're actually creating exam papers for people to take so that you can measure on how good or bad they are or ready they are? But I have just always loved simplifying things that people find complex. And the reason I'm fascinated by that is because it just helps me in my own understanding. I think that
what do we find complex right now as a generation, in 2021? What do we find complex, in your opinion?
There are several things. In no particular order, I'll pick three. One is how to look at money as an entity, not how to make money, how to grow money, how to invest money, but how to just build a relationship with money. Because unfortunately, we've never had a conversation around money, or very rarely have had a conversation around money while growing up with our parents and so on. But the entire world has opened up so much that the avenues of how do you create a relationship with money are so many, but we struggle. So that's number one. Number two, our relationship with time. People are struggling to deal with that because they don't have a relationship with time. They don't understand their own time. They don't understand the value of their time. They don't understand how to control it. They don't understand where it goes. And frankly, time is the only thing worth controlling. If you can control time, you can control literally everything that you need in your life. And the third one is, in my opinion, the biggest one, which is understanding who they truly are in their own world. I feel more and more people are now living lives which are defined by someone else. It could be society, it could be social media, it could be parents, it could be.
You mean more of a self-awareness about yourself?
Yes. And that's getting harder and harder because distractions and noise is just so amplified as against when we were growing up, where frankly in the 1980s, 1990s, there was no shit to even follow. You're like, this is our school, this is our colony, this is what we do. And that was the world, that was just it. And cable television was a first introduction in 91 to even get exposed to a world outside. And
correct,
even that was within or outside of the reach of so many of us. So today, when every 10-year-old or 12-year-old has a phone in their hand, which is the direct access to the entire world and every possible online citizen, and they get to see what people are doing and how and why, they just feel that they are not there, that they are the only ones who are confused and losers while everyone else is sorted. And because of that, they never build a relationship and an understanding of who they truly are.
That's beautiful.
Money, time, and self. Money, time, and self.
With this whole aspect of now for kids that you mentioned that, this conundrum that kids are in. Do you feel, and this might be a little bit of a vast question, so feel free to kind of answer it however you feel fit. We see a lot of content creators becoming the names in education in a lot of ways today. When I say that, I refer to certain senses of, I don't know, we're talking about maybe an understanding of money. You have someone like a Tanmay Bhatt who's doing, his Honestly series. You have someone like maybe a Ranveer Alabadia who wants to engage in talking about entrepreneurship and whatnot. And the younger generation of today, who are, like you said, perpetually on that phone, look to these guys in a lot of ways. You just had a person like, if you follow Nas Daily, he's launched this entire series
Academy.
of this academy, this Nas Academy. And for a long time, our education system has been fragmented. Is this, in your opinion, the new way of education going forward? And after I ask you that, I would like you to kind of touch upon edtech as, startups and entrepreneurship. We'll get to that second, but let's just start with this.
Yeah, I think education is broken. It's fundamentally broken because it hasn't changed in the last 100 years. The current form of education that we are used to and have grown up on was only meant to serve a purpose that was very valid for the Industrial Revolution. It was meant to make people compliant, meant to train them deep into a specific subject and to become experts at that, not become generalists, not even endorse that. And if you look at the world of education before the 1900s, it was a very different era. It was an era where people were encouraged to dabble in multiple disciplines, in becoming polymaths, in becoming generalists, in just having a sense of awareness through conversation, through debates, through just not sitting in a classroom, but experiencing the world in its real self. But that was all thrown away. And that was, by the way, a very valid turn of events. So I wouldn't dismiss that just because it's convenient today. But what hasn't happened is that the world's changed dramatically, but the form of education hasn't. So we are all subjected to that same. There has to be a degree of an institution of repute that we go to. There is a stamp that we have. There's a job that we go for, and that's the only career you get. Or the choice that we make of science, commerce, and arts in class 11th, which frankly we have no basis to make except the marks that we've scored in class 10th. All of that is just so wrong. So I feel what's happening is that the internet is democratizing education in a way that you get to pick and choose who you want to learn from. And by that measure, you can actually, sitting wherever you are in the world, have access to the best teachers in the world, whether it's free, whether it's paid, but there is no way that you don't have access anymore. You could be studying from the best universities in the world. You could be studying from the best professors. And the same way that there was a time when we used to follow TV channels on TV. Oh, मैं Star देखता हूँ. Oh, मैं Z देखता हूँ. But we don't have that conversation anymore because we follow shows. We don't follow channels anymore. We follow shows. We frankly don't even remember on which platform is the show. So at times we just even forget, like, oh, where was that? That's the same thing that's going to happen with education. We're not going to follow institutions. We're not going to follow schools. We're not going to follow colleges. We're going to follow instructors, teachers, because they would have that following and that expertise, of course, to have created that goodwill and that following or that distribution that people trust them on that one subject.
Yeah.
So I get to decide my own curriculum. I can literally say, I want to study chemistry from this person, philosophy from this, money from this.
Do you think that's too much freedom for a kid to kind of decide?
I think there will have to be an organization, which is where to the follow-on question that you had of EdTech comes in. What EdTech is trying to do is to create a structure of curation that allows you to make those choices actively, but also in a manner that helps you. So it's like, if you want to buy a car today, there are 10,000 options for you to choose from, as against 20 years back when you just had 3 options to choose from. So that doesn't make you lost, because what's happened is that there are businesses that have emerged that help you make those choices, whether it's a review mechanism, whether it's a comparison, whether it's a listing of all that you will get, whether it's a testimonial, whether it's anything that thereof. And the same way that Amazon does it. There are millions of products on Amazon. That spoils us for choices, but we also in some way rely on Amazon to make that choice. And that's the purpose that Amazon serves now. It's not so much about giving us what we want, but it's also allowing us to make the decision of what we want. And that is, in my opinion, the direction that EdTech should take and will take. It will become more and more about helping mechanism and a platform for students to make these choices.
I have a small little devil's advocate that I'd like to play here, just to get your thoughts on the other side of things. You brought up the example of Amazon, but then, for example, a lot of people say they get tricked on Amazon because Amazon's got their preferred sellers, their preferred retailers that are pushed to the top. So when you see that, you're like, okay, I'll go with this. And then you click on it. I don't have to explain that mechanism to you. You know how it works. Yeah. In a similar manner, I'm thinking from an edtech perspective, like you just mentioned. Will it be that, hey, edtech platforms will then push the most followed guy on Instagram, hypothetically,
Yeah.
or the most popular guy whose classes are being pulled up merely because of maybe a social media strategy that they might have employed,
Yeah.
and they have their own deals cut out with them for visibility. Would that
It's
mean
yeah.
further fragmentation in our educational system, although the choice is there, but the choice is an illusion?
Yeah. So it's invariably going to happen, K, and you put it really, really lucidly, because it is the eventual path that any such marketplace and platform will take. It is not the fault of the platform. It is just the mechanism through which economics will get delivered. So here's what happens. The difference is whether this is an ongoing repeat interaction or a one-off. For example, if you were to think of matrimonial websites, even if they were to hypothetically push something towards you that is serving a ulterior motive at their end, and you bought into it, there's nothing that you can do, because it's not a repeat ongoing relationship that you have. It's not that, oh, this one didn't work out, let me marry again after 6 months, or this one didn't work out, let me marry again after 6 months. But when it comes to something like Amazon, when it comes to something like education, if they push something that is not going to work for you, you're going to stop using it. As simple as that. So while, yes, they have the power of pushing something towards you, they also have to be absolutely driven by the fact that this needs to serve the purpose of the consumer. It's how we're experiencing Netflix right now. There was a time when Netflix was all about, oh, I'm just a repository of every content that you want to consume. So you want to watch a movie that you know of, go and search, watch it. But now Netflix is like, no. We've spent millions of dollars building this shit out for you, whether it's a series or a movie or so on, and we want you to watch it. And there
The
will be
Netflix
enough and more
original
people.
with that title.
Say that again?
With the Netflix original title.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, ooh, this is fancy. Like, this is original. And they'll create all that. Like, it was very late that I started Money Heist. So I don't follow series at all. It's too much of a commitment at my end. And this was the only one that I think I had committed after Chernobyl, which was, I think, 2 years back. So it was just fascinating. I loved it. But I stopped after season 3, because for me, when they walked out,
don't do that. Please finish. It's so I'm telling you, it's so good, Ankur. I mean it. It's so good.
Oh God. So the point I was making was, I was mind blown, K, by how much effort they put in releasing the latest episodes and run. It was just crazy. It was almost like this was the biggest event on earth.
Yeah,
it was bigger than the Olympics. It was bigger than anything it was. And I remember Game of Thrones. If I'm not wrong, I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Good, you've done yourself a favor.
So the last run, I was told, was very disappointing, and people, it didn't live up to expectations and whatnot. So Netflix got a lot of backlash. So it had to come up with something that redeemed themselves. So I feel that there is a very self-fulfilling mechanism that takes over, where if you do suggest something that doesn't work out for people, they are going to come back to you, because it's a repeat interaction. So long story short, education for me is a repeat interaction. And yes, there will be pushing of individuals, themes, courses, even ideologies that will serve the purpose of the platform. But if it doesn't serve the purpose of the customer, ultimately, it's not going to work out. The platform's going to die, as have been several examples in the past.
Ankur, like you picked out the example of this whole giving people the choice. For an adult is simple. An adult might be self-aware to say that, I know they're pushing this onto me, I'm not going to watch it, like how you did for Money Heist. But for a kid, their mind is a lot more fragile, let's just say. Yeah. I also think that, to add to your point, there will be almost like an awareness module from a social media perspective that we should have for our kids, to be like, hey, listen, you have access to all this knowledge, but be aware of the hooks it comes with.
Correct.
Understand the mechanism behind that. I was listening to a podcast by Kunal Shah, and I thoroughly enjoy what he talks about when he talks about curiosity, that kids that we kill in our very own kids over the years, and which is why we are building, like you said, factory line workers as opposed to entrepreneurs who have dreams and can, in their head, I can achieve anything, I'll figure out the path. One aspect that he kind of brings up in that entire chat is that when, say, for example, a kid comes up to a parent and says that, Mama, what is this plastic made of that is on top of the phone? And I say, it's made of plastic here, chhod do. Don't eat my brain. Like, go play outside, right? However, as opposed to talking about, if you sit with the child and be like, okay, that's fascinating. I don't know myself. Come, let's sit. And then you say that you do a little bit of a Google search, you read, you explain. It's a two-way process. You're learning, your kid is curious, their curiosity is satiated, and then they become more curious. We only learn when we are curious. I understood, for me, when I was in school, we were all, in fact, you as well, we were made to not be curious. We were made to pass that exam. That's it. The goal was to pass the exam. The goal was not to, if I enjoyed a certain part of biochemistry, to go all in, to go and like just research the hell out of it, and I wish, and not to take away from teachers, there are some teachers who engage and make that curiosity happen. How are you dealing with it with your kids? I'm curious.
It's very similar to how Kunal's ideology is. There are a bunch of questions that both of them have. And what we've made sure as parents is never to dismiss the question. That's the first thing and the first step. And second is to just engage, whether it's engaged through learning, it's engaged through conversations, it's engaged through interactions, just engage. But I think the other piece that I have realized as a parent, and especially that of a 10-year-old, which is how old Vidur is now, kids have a wonderful ability to discover the answers themselves if they're only encouraged to do so. So what we do is we just let them be, and we never stop them. And that's our job. Our job is not to stop them and to impose our own view of the world on them. It's to just let them be. For example, something as trivial as, I think we'll be the only parents in our entire society which would be totally okay with our kids playing with mud and dirt, while all others will be like, oh, हाथ गंदे हो जाएंगे, कपड़े गंदे हो जाएंगे, ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. Like, screw it. Just go ahead and do this. Like, just figure it out. We're absolutely in love with the fact that they struggle to speak in English right now, because we know for a fact that they will speak in English sooner than later. It's the business language of the country.
Yeah.
But it's quite likely that they won't speak Hindi if we don't even speak in Hindi.
So
we all speak in Hindi. I don't like the fact that despite being a Kashmiri, I can't speak in Kashmiri. I can only understand it. And as much as I can or would want to blame my parents, the fault is on me. I never tried. But it's wonderful when kids just find their own ways. Amazon courier comes with a huge box with just this small phone inside of it. They're like, take the box, let's just figure something out. And a new laptop is emerging from that box, a new dollhouse is emerging from that box, or something like that. Kids are wonderful. We are born curious. Society kills that curiosity. So the only job that you have as a parent is not to let that get killed. That's it. And that's why I remember distinctly, my biggest worry as a parent was selecting the school that we send them to, because I was like, shit, if we go to the same school that we went to, they are doomed.
Yeah.
So tragic. We think we found a good school, but yeah, time will tell.
It's scary now as a parent. I mean, I can't imagine how you feel. It's to get that responsibility that your parents had for you, and now understand how they feel. Yeah. It's like attaining nirvana almost, being like, Arey. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how you feel as a parent, and I'm saying this because I'm also with a little fear. I'm getting married now, and very soon I'll be in your situation.
You will be in that zone. Yeah, it's a big thing. Yeah, it's a life. And it's not about a life key. What will they end up doing? It's a life about how will they grow up as people. That's it, as humans.
That's it. Yeah. I agree.
What will they come to respect? What will they come to value? And what will they come to dismiss and not? Wow, it's such a huge responsibility.
People have never, I don't know, maybe people have, but I have never heard you speak about your better half and how she has played a vital role in your life. I'd love if you could tell me something.
I wouldn't be here without her, man. She is my rock. We met very early in life. We met when both of us
Forgive
were
me when I
19.
ask you her name.
Ruchi. Her name is
okay.
Ruchi. So
Okay.
I intentionally keep my family away from the social media because there are not so good actors in the world, and you don't want to be setting yourself and your family up for some absolutely undesirable consequences just because of where you are. So Ruchi and I met each other when we were 19, and we were in the same. So in Delhi University, there's a North campus, which is quite a lovely congregation of all the colleges close by. So
Popular for their chole bhature, by the way, North Campus.
but yeah, immensely popular for the chole bhature and just the vibe in general. So she went to a girls' college called Miranda. I was in a college called Hindu. I don't know of many people who from Hindu were able to date a Mirandian. So I'm one of the ones who will be there on the dean's list of Hindu who was able to not just date but also marry a Mirandian finally. And like, forget the toppers. This is the guy who did it. So. And we started dating at the age of 20, and we got married when we were 27. So we'd known each other for 8 years when we got married, and we in the 7 years of dating went through a lot, which just told me that we're true for each other. There were 2 years of long distance when I was in the US. There was a year of long distance when I was in my MBA program. There was a lot where she of course had started earning, and she was building a career where I was just studying. So there was a lot about I had to rely on her. There were so many occasions where, because of the stupid money mistakes I made, we were completely in distress, and her just consistency and intensity of investment and making sure that she always had her back just saved us. And yeah, we've continued to thrive. She's today, not many people know about this, and I haven't gone on record saying it as well. She is my manager today. So she's the one who's she manages everything. While I just create content, she's the one who deals with all the clients and all the partnerships and everything that she does. And she does such a terrific job. I couldn't have done it without her.
Wow. That's so good to hear. I think credit where it's due, right?
Yeah.
Do you often go up to her and say these words that I don't
yesterday,
know
last night.
Yeah?
Last night, literally in bed last night, we were like, oh my, I cannot thank you, because I don't think you have any idea of how much you being my manager has helped me become better at what I do. Because she's like, she just feels that I can do everything. And she's like, I don't think I've done anything, because you would have done it as it is. I would have done it, but that's not the point. The point is, am I doing a better job of what I'm doing because you're doing something that you're good at? And the answer is conclusively yes. And I think when it comes to, I've said this, which wasn't received very well, but I'll say it every single time. The family that you're born in and the parent and the partner that you choose for your life, these two decisions make up for almost 90% of your outcomes in life.
Yeah.
One which you don't get to choose, and one which you have full control over. And it's crazy how many people are unable to move forward because of their family and their spouses. And it's fascinating how many people are able to, just because of their family and their spouses.
So true. It's one of those small things that make such a big difference that not many people realize. You're absolutely right. 100%. From that perspective, what would be your little advice to, let's just say, younger folk out there, while they might not have the choice of a family but have a choice of a partner, and what a really important role it plays in one's life? What would you like to say to them?
There are three things that I've realized are very, very important in any relationship, and more so in the relationship that you're going to carry for a really long time, if not for the rest of your life. One is picking up people who feel that they are responsible for their own happiness, as against make someone else responsible for their own happiness. It's a very important distinction to make. There are people who believe that it's the responsibility of the other person in the relationship to make them happy. And there are people who believe that it is their own responsibility to make themselves happy. And I think that if you find such a person who feels accountable for their own happiness and for their own decisions, you will have a far more fulfilling relationship than if you were constantly told that you're the one who has to make me happy and you're not doing a good job, or you are the one who is supposed to be making me happy and you're doing a good job. Either of these two is not the right zone to be in. So that's number one. Number two, I think, irrespective of all said and done, I believe a common worldview on money and religion always helps. Money more than religion, but both as a combination does. It doesn't mean that they need to have a point of view. Even if they don't have a point of view and both of them don't have a point of view, that's also a point of view. So you don't have to be marrying a religion or a religious ideology into another religious ideology. It could very well be, I don't consider myself aligned to any religion or any ideology, nor do you, and that makes us two of us, and that's awesome as well. But I feel that common worldviews on money and religion definitely help. And number three is just the notion of what is the purpose of this relationship. It's a very crazy question to ask, because the truth is that marriage is a forced institution. It was just brought about because society has to be kept in a certain decorum, and you could not have people just wandering and doing whatever they wanted to fancy. So it is a forced institution. But now that it is a forced institution, we all recognize that, or some of us do, why are you getting into it? What is the purpose that it serves for you in your life? And it's not about short term. It's not about having access to a person for physical, emotional intimacy or anything. It's about the long term. Like, what do you really imagine this to be? Is it just a sense of security? It's a sense of stability. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of not wanting to be alone, whatever it is. And I can totally imagine that most people don't have these conversations before they select their partners, because these are not just hard questions. These are also questions that most people don't even know they should be asking. And sooner than later, your physical intimacy and attraction will go away, will fade away. And all that will be left will just be the feeling that you have in that relationship.
I couldn't agree with you more, because this is the way that I feel with my fiance, and these are things we are talking about. I recently started speaking about this publicly, about how we are doing pre-marriage counseling before we get married, and this really, kind of helps you get on the same page. We've had some arguments about certain things, but it's great that we're sorting this out now, rather than figuring it out later.
Exactly.
So I'm a huge advocate now. Like, when people come and tell me, like, hey, I'm planning on getting married, I'm like, do some pre-marriage counseling. It won't kill you. In fact, and if your partner's open to it, and they're planning on this thing, like, even better.
It's the best thing. It's such great advice. Great advice.
Yeah. We have had a conversation which has felt like it's just flown by. And I am extremely grateful for you taking out the time. I really don't know what else to say, other than, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of times when you speak to that camera, like you told me in the beginning, a lot of people feel like you're speaking to them one-on-one. I think maybe that's a reason that people connect with your content a whole lot more, as opposed to somebody else who just goes in front of takes some pretty shots, puts some narration and some cool graphics on it, and that connection is lost. And I think that's where you're winning, and you're not even, I don't know, maybe you realize it, maybe you don't. But, from that perspective, it's weird coming into this conversation with you. I thought I knew you. And over the course of this conversation, that changed. I feel like I've gotten to know you even better. And the nice part is that it's not that the previous impression that I had of you is washed away or whatever. It's just that I feel like, man, this guy's exactly how he is on social media, which is a nice thing. Being real is a virtue that is lacking a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
I think, Ankur, like, I've so enjoyed this conversation, and you've been such a cool person to have this conversation with. And I have nothing else to say to you apart from thank you. This has been great.
Thank you, man. No, thank you. That's really, really kind of you, Kay. I love the thoughtful questions. They made me think. I love such deep conversations, which are frankly very rare in today's world. And whenever someone comes in and you just bond, you just vibe, not because there is some agenda attached to it. It's just to know each other, just be curious. I'm always thankful for such conversations. This was 100% one of them, and I've had one after a really long while. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing, for even bringing me on and considering me. And I love the part that you said about authenticity. It's what makes me, and I feel that the biggest thing for consistency is being authentic, because if you're not yourself and you have to become someone else to do what you have to do, sooner than later you're just going to fall off, and it's not going to work out. So I am exactly the same person. You would meet me in a mall, we'll hang out in Bangalore, you come to Delhi or any other such interaction, you wouldn't find a difference. And that is the best thing and the best compliment you could have given, and I'm grateful for you to have shared that with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankur.
94.3 Radio 1.